Ho ho hello, thank you for stopping by. My name is Becky and this is BecxReadz. You still got a lot of days to deal with me. So today I am here to share with you my 5 favorite fantasy romance books of the year. Fantasy romance has become my favorite subgenre, so I've read a lot of them. My 5th favorite fantasy romance of the year is Forged by Magic. This is about a woman who is a half fae, half orc, and she is sent to this remote island to try and find something for this king, because this king has slaughtered all of the orc population on this planet and she is one of the only few left. So he sends her there to try and find what he is looking for. And when she gets there, she ends up in this small little village that isn't anything like she expected it to be. It is full of people who care about one another and who are just trying to survive and have nothing to do with this kingdom that she comes from. They are totally separated from it. And she's trying to track down this magic. However, everybody in this village is trying to prevent her from finding this magic because they don't want the king anywhere near their island home. She ends up catching the eye of this blacksmith who is a fae. He is harboring secrets that have to do with this magic that she is trying to hunt down. He is sort of recruited to keep a close eye on her. He really doesn't want to do this because he doesn't like orcs. But through them being forced together and through him being forced to spend time with her, they end up forming a romantic relationship. I love that neither of the love interests were human. I need more fantasy romance with this dynamic where a human isn't involved. I liked that this had something to do with dragons, though I won't tell you how. I just thought that this found family atmosphere was so cozy and quaint, and I cannot wait for book 2 to come out next year. My 4th favorite fantasy romance of the year is actually a duology, and it is I think it's called The Seas of Caledonia. It's Siren's Mutiny and Captain's Revenge. This is a duology that I've seen around, but I've never really heard anybody talk about it, and all I really knew about it was that it had a pirate and a siren involved. But I got the first book as a free audiobook, so I thought, why not give it a try? I really loved this seafaring pirate and siren adventure. This is about a woman who is a siren, and she ends up causing this shipwreck, and when she goes to check out one of the pirates who fell overboard, she realizes that there's something very familiar about him, and it turns out that when he was younger, he tried to save her life. So she ends up saving his life in return as sort of a debt repaid. However, she's not supposed to do this. She is supposed to kill men. And so the other sirens sort of shun her from their society. They're like, you want to choose a man over us? Get your ass out of here. They find out that his father is doing some very bad shit with children. He is selling them. And so the siren tries to inform the other sirens to keep an eye out. And they're like, we don't want anything to do with you. Girl, you chose him over us. We don't care. She's like, they're children. And so because they won't do anything, she and this captain end up trying to track down his father and intercept his plans. And they find out some nefarious things to do with the queen of the sirens. I liked the relationship dynamic in this story. It was a very slow burn progression in their romance. Neither of these books in this duology have a lot of spice. I would probably say 1 smut scene per book. And if you know me, I just like seafaring adventures. So if you are somebody who's looking for a fantasy romance that has a good plot to it with low steam, check out this series. My 3rd favorite fantasy romance of the year was Between Wrath and Mercy by Jess Wisecup. This is the story of a woman who is, I think she's in her late 30s to early 40s. She is the main female main character, which is one of the aspects that I really liked about this story, is that it had older characters. She has been keeping her daughter very sequestered from most of the world because there is something special about her daughter that she doesn't want people to find out because she doesn't want them to use her for this. But one day her husband and her daughter get kidnapped. So she sets out to find her daughter, but she needs the help of the prince who she was in love with when she was a teenager. They work together and they try to track down her daughter. And in doing so, she finds out some secrets that her husband has been keeping from her, and she rekindles this love with this prince that she left behind. This is a bit of a slower paced story. I can see how some people would find it really boring. But I really enjoyed it. I loved the journey that she went on to try and track down her daughter. I loved, once again, that these were older characters. I loved the second chance romance that was in here. I really loved the male main character. I think his name is Rain. I think. Anyway, he was just, he was a perfect love interest. And I know some people don't love that about him. I know they think he's too perfect. But I often get tired of reading these tragic love interests where they all have some sort of fucking problem that they have to overcome. I just want to read about a normal guy who doesn't have a lot of secrets, doesn't have a dirty, awful past or anything like that. So I enjoyed that for his character. And I think if you don't mind a slow-paced fantasy romance with older characters in it and a good plot, I think you should definitely check out this series. My second favorite fantasy romance of the year was The Inkwater Witch by Atlee Wykes. This is a witch-fae fantasy romance, and in this we are following Mardella, who is a witch. She lives in this enchanted swamp, and she lives a very isolated life until one day this ice fae named Rorik shows up in her swamp with his gang, and they kidnap her. And they are trying to force her to break this curse because something in her swamp is infecting the ice fae and killing them. So they go on this journey through this enchanted swamp full of dangerous creatures to try and reach a certain point where she has to perform this spell to break this curse. And along the way, she keeps telling him, she's like, I'm not the one who created this curse, and he doesn't believe her. But along the way, they also find out that they may be fated mates with one another. And so even though he doesn't trust her, he's starting to develop feelings for her. He's very protective of her, and she is starting to really like him and his group of friends. And they discover some secrets about this curse and some secrets that have to deal with the werewolves that are also in this book. I enjoyed this a lot for its setting. I've never read a book with an enchanted swamp before. I also really liked that our main character was a witch because duh, it's me. I loved the hate to love relationship in here. I loved that this had fated mates. I loved the dynamic between the wolves and the fae. I'm not going to tell you how that dynamic is connected, but I enjoyed it. I also loved the found family of his band of people. It very much gave me like Inner Circle vibes. I will say there are a couple flaws within the story with like grammatical errors and things like that. It's not a lot, it's just a couple times that I noticed, but I overlooked that because I loved the chemistry, I loved the setting, I loved the plot of the story so much. And my favorite fantasy romance goes to A Ship of Bones and Teeth by Karina Halley, another chunker. This is a dark Little Mermaid retelling about Marin, who sold her fins to the Sea Witch in order to fall in love with Prince Eric. However, 10 years into this abusive marriage with him, she is ready to go back to the sea. So she's on a mission to track down the Sea Witch to get her fins back. And one day, she and Eric are on the sea, and they get commandeered by Captain Ramsey, who is a pirate ship captain, obviously. He is very attracted to Marin, and he releases Marin's dangerous and dark side. They have such an intense, angsty relationship, and I'm not usually one for angst, okay? This is another example of a book that has something in it that's super angsty. I'm not usually one for that, but this book made me enjoy it. I expected this to be a lot more smutty than it started out as. It takes about 150 pages into this book for any sort of romantic relationship smutty times to ensue. But boy, when it hits in a great, fun way. I loved, again, the seafaring setting. It had lots of action, adventure. There's lots of slicing and dicing, and the smut scenes were just fun. Those were my 5 favorite fantasy romances of the year. Let me know down in the comments what has been your favorite fantasy romance if you read them. But if you don't want to comment that, but would like to let me know that you made it to the end of this video, could you just leave me a crown emoji? And with that being said, I will see you tomorrow for a completely new video in Bookmas. Who knows what it's gonna be, but it won't be a Fave 5 video. Bye!